With Zac Snyder's Justice League getting released almost a week ago today, what better time to give you guys my ranking of every movie in the DCEU. So guys, we are going to go from Man of Steel to Justice League, and I'm going to give you guys my ranking from 10 to 1. Hey there guys, and welcome back to Dino Reviews. And before we jump into our DCEU ranking, remember guys, this is not an official ranking, it's not a definitive ranking, it's just my own personal ranking of the franchise. If of course you have a different ranking, make sure you leave it down below in the comments and let's talk about it. First up, we got Justice League from 2017, otherwise known as Justice League. Now for me, going into the movie, I actually really did enjoy it when it first got released. I thought it was a fun, kooky little superhero movie, and it was quite harmless. Now looking back at it, especially with Zac Snyder's version of the film being released, it is absolutely appalling how much of this movie was actually cut out. Stripped away character development, chunks of story missing, and an awful comedy timing just make the movie feel like an absolute disaster from beginning to end. As well as that, it does show you what happens when studio execs come on board and pretty much put their foot in where it doesn't belong. You get two directors with two completely different visions and they try to just mesh the whole thing together. It doesn't work, and unfortunately the movie ends up a complete baffling disaster. Next up, we got Aquaman. Now some people might be surprised to see this so far down the list, but for me it's just a movie I never personally gelled with. It wasn't a movie that was particularly memorable, although I do still enjoy the movie. Jason Momoa is absolutely brilliant in the role of Aquaman, and he's probably my favourite version of the character. Now what I didn't like about the movie is at times it just felt like it didn't know what it wanted to be. It's a mix of different genres. At one point it is Indiana Jones, and all of a sudden it's this big operatic epic. So the movie, it kind of goes and travels around the globe in these different circumstances. At one point they're under the sea, in the next they're in a desert, and that was just a little bit confusing for me. It kind of felt a bit too big, as if the director thought this was the only Aquaman he was ever going to make. The CGI also doesn't always work, but look, it's a water-based movie with a ton of action sequences, so you really can't expect anything else. Next we got Suicide Squad, and this is by far the most frustrating one on the list for me, mainly because I do enjoy the movie and just the world that they were building within it. Unfortunately, again, because studio execs came in, they pretty much chopped the movie up, they refilmed the ending, they put a lot of music in to cover up a lot of scenes, and you're just kind of left with this soulless mess of a movie. The Suicide Squad work for the most part themselves. I do enjoy the chemistry that the cast actually have, but of course Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is the standout in the movie. Her role as Harley Quinn is absolutely sensational, and she pretty much nails the part and makes it her own. Now as well as that, I do personally think Jared Leto's Joker is brilliantly done. I think he's quite underrated for his performance, but my favourite character in the entire movie was actually Viola Davis's Amanda Waller. I just loved watching her character, seeing kind of her moral compass of what she personally considered right and wrong, and I wanted to see more of her character. For me, I'm delighted she will be in the sequel to Suicide Squad, because she was again one of the better parts of the movie overall. Coming in at 7th place is Birds of Prey, so Harley Quinn's madcap crime heist movie, which got a bit of slack when it was first released, but it's always been a favourite of mine. What I enjoy about the movie is just the small scale event of it. You know, these characters are not trying to save the universe or save the world. It is pretty much a heist movie, and that's what works for Harley Quinn. I also again love the world building in the movie. It kind of feels definitely like the same world from Suicide Squad, and Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie's performance is just as good. Now one thing I was quite worried about going into the movie was the Birds of Prey themselves. I was a little bit worried that Harley Quinn would actually outshadow all of them in the movie, but she honestly doesn't. Each of the characters, we actually spend quite a lot of time with just developing their characters, and by the end of the movie I was excited to see them in a sequel. Black Canary in particular, I thought she had a great story arc in the movie. She has great growth, and you do genuinely like the character when you get to the last act of the film. I do think this movie will get better over time the more people watch it and just give it a chance. It's a great one in the DCEU and it's definitely much different than the other films we have. Hitting the number 6 spot is Batman vs Superman, so Zac Snyder's ambitious effort at putting two huge superheroes face to face. Honestly, again, with this one it's gotten better over time. I remember when I first watched this, I absolutely despised the movie and I didn't really want to see it again. Now the ultimate cut of the film has actually helped over time and I've actually come to appreciate it more and more. There are definitely parts of this movie that I don't like. The big fight scene in particular I'm not a fan of, and just the characterization of Superman, but the rest of the movie is quite ambitious and it's actually quite well done. The ultimate addition of the movie is definitely a vast improvement, particularly for characters like Lois Lane and Superman, but there's also a gravitas to certain scenes that really sets the movie apart from other superhero films. Now Batman is incredible in this one. I absolutely love the performance by Ben Affleck. I love the look of Batman and he definitely solidifies himself as one of the best Batman in the entire DC universe. Zack Snyder was essentially trying to give us multiple villains, a whole host of new superheroes that potentially would get their own movies, and also give us this giant face-off between Batman and Superman. It's ambitious and it's bold, but it was very easy to see how it would fall apart. At 5th spot is Wonder Woman 1984. Moving from World War I to the capitalism of the 80s was a great call for the movie. I do actually enjoy how they went into consumerism and greed that we got with the 80s and actually what it does to the movie. Now the movie definitely has quite a lot of issues. Chris Pine's character in particular, I don't like that overall story. As for the big villain, the kind of dream scenario that they have set up, I liked it, I enjoyed it. I do think they were a bit too ambitious, especially with the ending of the movie, but again I do think people will appreciate all of that over time. Overall though, it's a bubblier, campier and just more colourful movie than we had been getting in the DC. It reminded me of Superman 78 and for me personally, I was all in with that story. Next we got Shazham. For me, I absolutely love this movie, mainly just because of how family oriented it is. The comedy in this is absolutely perfect and it's also got a lot of heart. Now I did go back and forth depending giving this my 3rd spot. It was a struggle, but overall after rewatching my 3rd spot movie, this definitely deserves 4th spot. Honestly, I remember coming out of this one and at the time saying it was my favourite of all the DCEU movies. Now over time that has gone down the list slightly, but it's still a perfect DC film. Hitting the number 3 spot is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now I will say this one is an absolute cinematic epic and it's better than Joss Whedon's version in every single way. With more character development, fleshed out fight sequences and just a more fully realised story, the movie gives you a 4-hour onslaught of godlike superhero action. Cyborg, as others have said, is pretty much the heart of the movie and I loved just how much story he actually had in this one. It's baffling to see how much of his story arc they actually cut out. Now as well as that, Wonder Woman and Aquaman are kind of upgraded to these godlike superheroes and really you see the vision that Zack wanted to show us. Batman is also a big improvement, as is Steppenwolf. He's actually probably one of the best characters in the entire movie. He's imposing, he's terrifying, but he also has a human-like quality to him. Now the CGI is still a bit of an issue for the movie, as is the character development of Superman. He kind of comes across as this brute figure even while he's good, but the 4-hour runtime goes by nicely. The movie does a great job of actually keeping you entertained. There's a hell of a lot of fight sequences, particularly with the Amazonians. That's probably my highlight overall in the entire film, but there's just a hell of a lot going on. Although it's 4 hours, it actually flies by and you are always interested to see what's going to happen next. Coming in at 2nd place is Man of Steel. Now clearly this one had a lot of inspiration from Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. You can see that immediately watching the movie, but it still has a huge Snyder vision to it. You can tell his visuals are deep down in this movie and his ideas, particularly with that darker version of Superman, work a lot more in this entry. The visuals and the storytelling in the movie are absolutely gorgeous all the way through, and I actually really enjoy the characterization of Superman. This isn't your typical Boy Scout, but he's also not the morose Superman we get in Batman vs Superman. The movie also has quite a lot of action, and it's good action. Now it is quite questionable pretty much the amount of destruction Superman and Zod cause at the end of the movie. Yes, it is questionable, but it's probably the closest we've gotten to seeing what would actually happen if two superheroes were fighting fighting in a city. The snapping of Zod's neck is also a big plus for me. I thought it was worth it. They really kind of worked at that point in the movie, and it just helped Superman grow as a character. And finally, coming in at first place is Wonder Woman. Now what I like about Wonder Woman, it's a pretty simple, uplifting story about Diana Prince, or Wonder Woman's journey to become the warrior she is. I really enjoy the movie. I think Chris Pine and Gal Gadot have amazing chemistry on screen, so you immediately buy into their story and you buy into their relationship. As well as that, basing it in World War gave us great setup and just great scenes, particularly the No Man's Land segment. I thought was stunningly done and was probably the best part of the overall movie. But for me, I think Wonder Woman works because at that point in DC in particular, we had a lot of darker movies coming out. We had Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Suicide Squad, and it was just a bit refreshing to get something lighter. It still had a darkness to it, it had a lot of action, but it just also had a lot of heart. For me guys, it is the definitive DC movie. I think it works in every way possible, and I love watching this one. As I said guys, this is just my own personal ranking. I'm sure yours will be different. Now again guys, if your ranking is different, make sure you let me know what it is in the comments down below, and let's just talk about it. Remember guys, if you want to see more videos like this one, you can of course subscribe to the channel, pop on a notification bell so you get more notifications about videos that are coming up. And if you want to see more videos right now, click that link down below, and I will see you in the next one.